Chapter 3. Who is she? When Varshi came home, entering the garden, she found Diego sitting at a stone table, totally absorbed in writing. He was startled out of his work when she greeted him. She asked him to follow her to her home office. "Please sit," she said as she took out from her drawer an envelope containing a pile of dollar bills. "This is your salary for last month. Please check." "Thanks, madam," Diego said as he put the envelope into his pocket without checking. "Any new stories about Isaac?" Varshi asked in an affable manner. She could not suppress her burning curiosity of listening to stories of Isaac. "Yes, madam," Diego answered with some self-importance. His eyes brightened. "When your family was on vacation a few weeks ago, he visited me a few times." "He purchased another property?" Varshi asked jokingly. Diego's answer surprised her. "Exactly. He bought and fixed another small broken house. He came to ask if I could help manage it, and I gracefully promised. During those days, I also helped him open an online account for purchasing stocks, though he has yet to use it." Varshi laughed heartily. "He has become a capitalist. So, in return, he told you the remaining story of his horse chasing in Arizona, which you told me. He was reluctant to tell you the whole story before." "Madam, you are right again," Diego said with an eyeful of respect. "I did not ask, but he offered to tell me, as he knew I was very interested in it. I always spend great effort to record his adventures in my journal." Varshi smiled but stayed silent, waiting for Diego to tell the story. Diego recollected his thoughts, and arranged them in their due sequence, falling silent for some time. Then he came back briskly. After bidding farewell to the girl, he went on to chase the horse. He ran steadily onward, and when he ran out of the forest, the panorama view from the mountain was breathtaking. He saw a huge green pasture extending to the horizon, where the sun was setting, casting its golden rays down upon the clouds of billowing smoke. A stream was flowing across the pasture at a distance, and a horse was drinking water from it. Further down were patches of marshland. He was gripped by a feeling of exhilaration. He sped down the mountain, and soon he recognized it was the girl's horse. While the steed had shown signs of exhaustion, the man had not. Isaac slowed down, and snatched a bunch of green grass along the way. The horse turned to face him. He spoke softly as he approached it from the left. He opened his palm carrying the grass that smelled fresh. The horse grazed the grass on his palm, and he gently touched its shoulder and neck with his free hand. The steed was obviously exhausted and hungry. He fastly snatched more fresh grass nearby, dropping it below its head. As the horse was grazing with satisfaction, Isaac took the saddlebag down from its back. He searched the bag, and found a bowl, a few pens, some snack bars, and a few bottles of water, but not any manual. The girl might have anticipated that his chase was inexorable, and hid the manual when there was a chance. He was disappointed but not discouraged. After feeding the horse with a lot more fresh grass, he signaled it to rest under a tree. That night, he meditated and slept next to the horse. He woke up at dawn. Waving goodbye to the horse, he ran all the way back to the place where they encountered mountain lions. He searched the tree under which the girl fed the horse water, and discovered a hole at the tree trunk near the bottom, inside which he found the manual. He retrieved the manual, and replaced it with a fake one, which was only 50% correct in explaining Tatesel. When he was ready to leave, he faintly heard a noise which soon became clearer, sounded like animals whining. He became alert. After years of homeless life, he had become vigilant about any possible danger. He picked a couple of stones, put them into his backpack, and ran into the woods. He climbed up a great tree, and nestled in silence on a branch, laying his back against the main tree trunk. Before long, he saw two motorcycles rattling through the forest. They stopped near the tree, where the manual was hidden. As the cyclists got down, and took off their helmets, Isaac saw a man with bulging muscles and impudent eyes, and a woman with the same hairstyle as the girl he met yesterday. They laid the helmets on the seats, and walked toward the tree. Isaac peered at the woman through the leaves. She looked like the florid girl he met yesterday, and dressed similarly, but her face had a slightly different shape. In particular, her face color looked pale, much lighter than the former girl. The man, tall and strong, wearing a black jacket and blue jeans, also looked familiar. The woman squatted down to search behind the tree, and easily found the fake manual. She stood up and looked at the man in triumph, proudly handing the manual to him. The man flipped a few pages and smiled, but the woman's face flashed an unusual emotion of sadness that the man did not notice. He said loudly, "Congratulations. You accomplished your mission though encountering some unexpected disturbance." The man's voice sent shivers through Isaac, and he missed the last part of his sentence. Isaac stared at his face, and remembered his wild eyes. He now recognized that he was the same man, a formidable man who tried to abduct him in Hong Kong some years ago. Immediately, Isaac was in the first stage alert. He realized that the man, strong as a lion, quick as a rabbit, wicked and profane, was extremely dangerous. He stealthily climbed one branch higher, so that the dense leaves could conceal him better. The woman waved her hand. "Don't speak so loudly. Here is where I encountered lions yesterday." Isaac felt another shock. The woman's voice was identical to the former girl, whom he met yesterday. The girl must have worn a high-tech face mask, which could change color according to the host's emotions. Today, she showed her real face. As Isaac was trying to untangle the confusion, the man laughed, but said with a lower voice, "If a lion comes, I will rip it apart." The girl stared at the ground. "I feel sorry that I lied to him again." The man laughed again. "Nothing to be sorry about. He was just foolish enough to believe. Foolish people are losers." He looked at the girl with a solemn expression. "Next time if we see him, we have to tell him his choices. Either he commits suicide here or he goes back to motherland. Any resistance or remonstration is useless. That's the standard procedure. Do you have the confidence to subdue him?" "I don't," the girl said. He ignored her question and walked to his bike, putting the manual into a bag, and took 2 bottles of water, giving one to the girl. "Let's drink enough water to make sure we will never dehydrate again." He certainly remembered well the dehydration and predating Isaac in Hong Kong almost killed him. "Thanks for the water. It tasted sweet," the girl said. "You must be thirsty." "So do I. This is a wonderful environment, like the lost horizon that no one reaches." As he spoke, he laid his hand on her arm, intending to claim her as his person, but she waved him aside gently. He pulled back his hand, staring at her with a twitching face. She walked sideways nobly. "You have learned the truth. He could have killed me easily, and I was rescued by him from the mouth of a lion. If we confront him directly, we might be the ones who have to commit suicide. We better leave before the lions come," she said, urging him to go. The man was obviously irritated. The unpleasant experience of abducting Isaac left him a devastating image in mind, a thorn continuing to prick him. He stepped closer to her, somewhat upset, but showed a smiling face. "Jade, you did a good job," he said, dropping the bottle, and stretching out his arms in a posture of hugging her. The girl slightly turned, and raised her bottle to drink the water, a polite gentle posture to block him. Isaac was slightly shocked when he heard the man calling her Jade. He felt confused. Her name is also called Jade? He muttered to himself. He suddenly thought about Jade, whom he met in Hong Kong. It was a weird encounter, and he sometimes had a faint hope that she could become a good human, not abducting or harming people anymore. He knew that his hope was unrealistic. As he was recalling the past, he missed the conversations between the couple. When he woke up from his thinking, he found the girl's face turned red. The man seemed to suppress his displeasure. "Jade, you know I love you," she said, somewhat mocking. "Donald, we are just working partners but nothing else. Don't imagine any fantasy." The man, Donald, irritated by the girl's insolence, said with a mirthless smile, "Don't pretend to be an angel. You had slept with many men before." She raised her eyebrows, indignant that he brought up this embarrassing issue, but she fought hard to suppress her anger. Don't exaggerate. If I had slept with anyone, it was my mission. I had no choice. She glanced at him with an exasperated roll of the eyes. Donald smiled superciliously. Then how about Sonny, the National Police Chief? What about him? She asked sharply. Donald said with a crooked smile, everyone knows you had an affair with him. She finally exploded and yelled angrily, that's none of your business. Are you jealous? I have the right to make friends with anyone I want. He chuckled. You knew that he had a wife and a kid, but you still offered yourself to him, dreaming that he would divorce his wife to marry you. But he dumped you after half a year, as he did to many women. The girl's face turned ashen. She shouted, shut up. Donald chuckled. Okay, there's no occasion to get so angry and rude at me. I am capable, and never shy of saying disgusting slogans to praise our national leader. Eventually, I'll be in Sonny's position. It would be very stupid if you reject me. He stepped forward, trying to hug her again. She raised her left arm, intending to slap his face hard, but Donald easily intercepted it and grabbed her wrist. She raised her other hand and swung the bottle to hit his head, but again Donald easily grabbed her wrist. Isaac was confused. The woman's attacks were slow and lacked power. They were very different from the lightning-fast, devastating punches of the girl he saw yesterday. Are they two different persons? But how could their voices sound so similar? He muttered to himself. The girl struggled, speaking angrily. You put the powder in my water. Donald smiled. Honey, you know well that the powder will only compromise your strength for half an hour. It won't do you any harm. You had used it before, and you wanted to use it on John, except that you did not get a chance. You are too good in martial arts, and I could not tame you without hurting you otherwise. So what I did is for your own good. The girl yelled, you shameless bastard. He laughed profanely. He stretched a leg forward passing hers, and suddenly kicked inward, knocking her legs. She immediately lost balance and fell backward. Still holding her arms, Donald fell forward upon her. Isaac shuddered. No. He screamed in his mind. Her head was going to hit the ground. Her weight plus the weight of Donald, a total of over 300 pounds, would make severe damage to her. When they were falling close to the ground, he released her arms. He swiftly laid his left hand on her back and touched the ground with the other hand. Bending his arm, he deftly absorbed the falling momentum. The girl fell softly on the ground. As her arms were free, she immediately pushed his shoulders, trying to shove him away. Donald grabbed her arms again. Take it easy, he said with a crooked smile and pushed her arms sideways. She cried desperately. No. Suddenly 2 stones, one after the other, were shot out from the forest, flying toward Donald. They struck his upper and lower back squarely. Donald uttered a cry and rolled aside. He bounced briskly to his feet, looking around with a ghastly face. As he did not see anyone, he shouted, with contemptuous anger toward the forest, son of bitch. Foolish head shrinking tortoise. No response. He growled, coward sluggard, only able to attack at one's back. I could twist your head with one hand. Claw out to have a fair fight. The forest was quiet and still. The girl had stood up, but she did not take the chance to run away. She stared blankly at the forest with an impassive expression, not showing much surprise or fright. Suddenly, they heard a faint, strange roar coming from the forest. They looked at each other with fright. The roar grew louder every moment passed and echoed back from the mountains, like wave crests falling upon preceding ones, pushing the wave higher and higher. Before long, incessant thunderous roars shook the whole forest. Terror gripped Donald. The girl cried abruptly, lions. Lions. A pride of lions is approaching. We are going to die. We are going to die. Donald rapidly moved toward his motorcycle, in a tremor of fear and indignation. Let's run, he shouted, waving his hand violently to signal Jade to move immediately. Go. I'll follow. I am lacking strength, but I'll catch up, she said, her voice faltering. Down the mountain, they fled. The sound of the motorcycles faded away as they disappeared into the trail, so did the roar. The forest fell silent. For years Isaac had plied using his inner energies with customary vigor. He could make cries with different tones to imitate animal roars, and the power of his cry, which had scared away Donald, even surprised himself. However, he was disturbed by what had happened. He stayed on the tree thinking. He had wished the girl would get away from the man, but instead, she was scared and ran away together with him. He felt enveloped by an atmosphere of nervous apprehension. A vague and wild thought passed through the mind that made him shudder. The thought took possession of his mind, so used to the darkness. Was it a setup? What were their missions? Could there be terrible menace concealed in the drama? If it was a setup to abduct him, the girl was delirious, a heartless devil. He saved her life and she returned with a vengeance. He stretched his thoughts further, but more deeply now, each thought more disturbing. He shook his head, trying to shake away the delirium which was haunting him. He tended to believe it was not a trap but a real drama that was unfolded in real time. As he thought deeper, he felt a thrill circulating in his body. Repeatedly everlasting gloom had slowly weighed down his heart. He did not sink into depression only because of the love of his parents in his childhood that gave him the strength to carry on. Suddenly, a strange sound broke his thought, and his vigilance was renewed. A motorcycle was approaching fast. He peered at the trail and found Jade was coming back, riding on the bike, but not wearing any helmet. She stopped near the tree, jumped down, and faced the forest. She put a hand on top of her head and wiggled her hair. In a short while, she pulled down a wig, exposing her shiny black hair. She hid her hands between her neck and hair, and shook her head a few times. Her hair loosened up, stretching down to her shoulders. Isaac was bewildered, staring at her in utter amazement. "Jade," he exclaimed silently. The girl who tried to abduct him some years ago was the same girl he met yesterday and now. Jade spoke to the forest. "Isaac, I know it's you. Once again you saved me, and you had saved me thrice, twice my life, once my dignity." Isaac suppressed his emotion of answering her, remaining silent. "I owe you another apology. I am sorry I lied to you about the whereabouts of the manual yesterday. I am so sorry. It was my mission, and it was fate that I had to lie to you. I am not asking for your forgiveness or your trust, for I deserve neither. But your perception of me weighs more than anything else. I have not lost all my dignity. I am not totally a shameless person, who could not distinguish justice from injustice, between right and wrong, reality and lies." She spoke with sorrowful resignation. "Isaac, they are after you. I entreat you to hide in an unknown farm or location, availing yourself of peace. Never again play table tennis or badminton in any public club. If they locate you, there's no chance that you could escape again." She paused, but there was no answer. "I am tired of this cycle of spying and fear and misery. What purpose has been served? I have enough and more than enough of all these. I live in a world of self-hatred and a whirl of lies and duties." She spoke sadly, weeping more heavily. "I feel tempted to put an end to this journey just as one terminates her life, when she feels life has become worthless. But the time has not come yet. I am content myself with having you not hating me. The remembrance of all I owe you will be in my memory forever." Her sadness, fear, urges, and care were manifest in her eyes. She climbed on her bike as tears flooded down her tender face. Isaac climbed down the tree and trembled. He made desperate efforts to restrain a convulsive emotion of coming out to console her. The girl rattled away, and he sank into a mood of sadness until the bike rattle could be barely heard. Utilizing his inner energy, he made a soft, long roar, a roar inspired from the Buddha script's King Kong roar. Slightly questioning, sounded compassionate, a roar of complicity, which could be heard a mile away, as an answer to Jade. The roar, which carried an emotion of benevolent sympathy, a trace of kindness and forgiveness, and preached that repentance is the first step to redemption, would penetrate the forest and reach Jade. She would understand the emotion of it, and she would repent, Isaac hoped. The roar died down. With a heavy mood, he ran in the opposite direction. He reached the tree under which he slept last night. The horse was grazing nearby. He gathered an abundance of fresh grass and bowls of water to feed the horse, and he became the new master of it. He rode the horse to California and left it in a farming family he worked for before. He continued his journey by running and lived a homeless life. Along the way, he visited another couple of sports clubs and worked on some farms as he did before. He also ran to Santa Barbara to visit a friend. He stayed in California for some time before he ran back to Grand Canyon, resuming his transportation business, but he would come back soon. It seemed that this singular episode ended upon a peaceful note, but the next one could be more thrilling. A marvelous story and remarkable narrative. Thanks, madam. Indeed, do you think that it was a setup in the forest to entice Isaac coming out? Varshi slowly leaned back on her chair and buried herself in thought. She sometimes strained her eyebrows, and sometimes appeared to be seized with a spasm of merriment. After a long silence, she smiled. The takeaway is not clear, but I incline to believe it is not a setup. First, they did not know Isaac was in the forest ahead of their trip. Second, from all the descriptions I've heard, Jade is an intelligent girl. In my life, I have contacts and deals with many people, and I conclude that the more intelligent a person, the more difficult she gets fully brainwashed. Everyone has a seed of virtue, righteousness, and the ability to distinguish between lies and facts, between right and wrong. The seed might lie dormant somewhere deep inside her mind, waiting to grow. Under the right environment, a humble seed would bud and bloom. She has not lost past redemption, and confessing truth comes redemption and remorse. Time and again she has been exposed to free speech and information in the free world, which would gradually wake her up. Isaac had saved her twice, which gave a final push for the embryo to break out of the hard coat. She would rather lie to Donald than betray Isaac. Any further conspired setup with Donald to harm Isaac would haunt her for the rest of her life. I believe it was a real drama of sexual assault. But after the assault, how could they still work together? Diego asked with a respectful tone. Varshi smiled. Even in America, in particular, in the movie industry, sexual assaults occur quite often. Many victims keep silent and live with it for years. Donald could easily explain away his assault as a setup to get Isaac. There's not much Jade could do, but of course, she will always watch out for Donald, and the gap between them would widen in the future. Madam, it's a prudent analysis and I agree, he said with an eyeful of respect. Varshi sighed. Having said that, I have to say that human minds are too complex to know about. The only thing certain is that I am never certain what they think. My life experience is too different from theirs. Diego was confused, but he did not pursue further clarification. Donald was not smart, was he? He was deceived to believe that a pride of lions was coming. Anyone with common sense knows mountain lions rarely appear in those mountains with hiking trails, he asked, longing for an opinion. She smiled again. We never know exactly what they think. Donald might fear Isaac more than mountain lions. With Jade on the opposite side, the best solution was to run away regardless of whether a pride of lions was coming. Diego nodded. True. Isaac says they are all good actors, and might be alluded to some mental disorder. If it was not a setup, then the warnings of Jade are true. Will Isaac be in danger? He asked with care. There are always risks, but Isaac is a remarkable person. He is prepared, well prepared. Varshi said calmly. Whom did he visit in Santa Barbara? A girl named Helen, who worked in the museum where I encountered the thugs and was rescued by Isaac. As he spoke, Varshi heard a clang of a bell from his PC. She smiled and nodded to Diego, a signal for him to leave. She entered a code, and the screen came to life as Diego left her office. Edward had sent a short email. I did not see anyone practice martial arts at the beach. Folk had reappeared 2 weeks after his disappearance. The URL below is a link to a video, showing part of Folk's news conference concerning his disappearance. You might have imagined too much. Nothing evil had happened. Sent from my cell phone. Varshi eagerly clicked on the link which launched the video. Varshi eagerly clicked on the link which launched the video. A man wearing glasses was sitting behind a table on a stage. A microphone was placed on the table and below the stage seated about a dozen reporters. The man looked slightly nervous. A lady asked, "Dr. Folk, why were you absent in your keynote lecture in the neuroscience conference?" The man on the stage, apparently Folk, answered, "I remembered the date wrong. 2 friends visited me, and we went hiking in Crystal Cove State Park. My friends left early, but I loved the view and continued my exploration of the park. It turned out that I got lost in the park and my cell phone was out of battery. Fortunately, I brought a lot of cash, a large bottle of water, some snack bars, and a mini flashlight that I always carry. Thick mists formed in the evening and I could not see anything several feet away. I gave up the hope of finding the exit. Fortunate enough, I managed to refill my bottle from a drinking fountain and gather a large number of haze and creepers. That night I took refuge in a shelter inside the park and I made a large thick coat using the haze and creepers. I huddled on the hay coat and fell asleep. When I woke, it was dawn. I sprang up and began to run. Unfortunately, I misread the maps posted in the park twice and took on the wrong trails. However, on the way, I discovered many small bunnies running on the trails and they did not seem to be afraid of humans. Their behavior aroused my curiosity and I spent time studying them. I was curious whether we could find these bunnies in other parks. Not until afternoon did I get out of the park, but I got out of the wrong exit, which was far away from my hotel. I found a food truck near the exit, so I ate and rested there, where I learned from a newspaper that I missed my keynote speech. Who were your friends? To protect their privacies, I would not disclose any information of my friends. Did you find your way back to the hotel after dinner? No, I got lost again and wandered around. I bought some thick clothes and a phone charger from a store and slept in another park that night. I was thinking about the bunnies and wanted to make further studies on them. I had heard about homelessness in Southern California. As a scientist who is full of curiosity, I suddenly came up with the idea of experiencing the homeless living in the area, while I made further studies of the bunnies. That night, before I slept, I called the hotel, telling them I would be away for 2 weeks. I also called the conference chair and apologized to him for my absence. The next morning, I wandered from park to park, looking for bunnies and studying their behavior, in particular, how they could coexist with humans. I also visited museums, historic places, and famous statues, and talked to local people who are friendly and fond of chatting. I had a great time chatting with them. Where did you sleep? At random places, the campus of a community college, shelters in a park, seashore of a beach, and the sidewalks of streets. It was a great experience. Every day, I breathed the air of freedom. Did you wear the same pair of shoes you wear today? No, they were torn and I had dumped them. Varshi did not pay much attention to the remaining part of the video as it was not relevant to his disappearance. She laid back for some time and lost in thought. Folk's experience was perfectly unique but nothing suspicious. What he described was consistent with the adventures described by Harold. Might be there's nothing mysterious or conspiring in Folk's disappearance. As Edward said, she had imagined too much. She smiled bitterly. Then she thought of Diego. He had not told what Isaac did while he was in California. She called him again.